Hey everyone, before we dive in, I wanted to share something exciting. You can now send us a text message directly from your favorite audio platform. Yes. So whether you've got a question, want to give us feedback, or just want to share your thoughts on the show, I'd love to hear from you. Look in the show notes at the very start and you will see the phrase, send us a text. Click that link, send us your message, and that's it. We can't wait to read them. Now, let's jump in with this episode.
There were two kids who were thought to be better than me all the way up through we got it through high school. And so I lived with a chip of wanting to prove people wrong for the longest time.
Today on the show, I have a graduate of Stanford University and retired NBA point guard. Brevin Knight is up next. Welcome back to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Adams, and this is where we dive deep into the world of sports, talking with retired athletes, current athletes, and everyone that makes the sports world great. A quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Audible, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcast. And hey, if you love what you hear, take a screenshot of your favorite episode and share it on Instagram stories, tagging us at 5THQRT Podcast, so more folks can discover these stories. Now grab your iced tea or your coffee, get ready to be motivated and inspired, because this is where the real stories are told. Today's guest is someone who knows the court from every angle. Former NBA point guard and one of the longtime voices you hear courtside, adding rich commentary to the Memphis Grizzlies basketball games. Now, if you've ever watched or listened to a Memphis game, you've heard Brevin's smooth mix of basketball IQ, storytelling, and humor. But before the mic, there was the hustle. The 3 high school state championships, a standout career at Stanford, a first-round draft pick, and 12 years in the league. And now he calls Memphis home. I couldn't be more excited to welcome to the show, Brevin Knight.
Hey, how are you, Sandy?
I'm great. I always like to let people know how I know my guests, and you and I have never met, so this is the first time. But a mutual friend of ours, Seth Henderson, Memphis basketball legend, and your
Yeah.
teammate in Cleveland, set this up so he might have a job as a booking agent for me soon.
Well, listen, he's we go way back, and so he knows normally when he calls me, then I'm there. There've been sometimes I've been like, I don't know if I can make that one though, Seth.
No, I appreciate very much. So, for those out there that may not be familiar with you, what are you currently doing?
Currently, I am the analyst for the Memphis Grizzlies on the TV broadcast on FanDuel Sports Network. And my job, pretty much what I tell people, entails me telling the why and when of what happens with basketball. And that's I don't have to tell you. Pete Pranica, who's my play-by-play guy, he
Right,
does a great job of setting the scene. I'm just supposed to give you just a little bit of more of the meat of the
right,
game,
right.
and I enjoy it.
I know that I'm big on Twitter when the games are going on sometimes, and a lot of people really love y'all's broadcast. And Pete told me when he was on here that you guys never plan what you're going to say.
No, we don't do any rehearsal, and a big part is me. We tape one thing, which is
Mhm.
our keys to the game.
Right,
We tape that before the game, and that is just because it runs during the national anthem, and
right.
so that's the only thing that we tape. Any and everything else is all. I mean, we have a format for how, of course, how you want
Sure,
things to roll,
sure.
but the everything within that is
Hmm.
all just in the moment.
And
Now here, Petey's a lot more prepared than I am. Petey has all his notes
I've
and the
seen
exact.
those. Yeah.
You've seen all of what that's no. I am the exact opposite. It is all up here, mumbled around, and then when you need it, I pull out that one, and then when you need something else, I pull out that one. So that all my writing down is all up here.
That's crazy. No, I've seen he's taken pictures and posted of like his
It's
setup before the
bored.
game. Yes,
Mhm.
it's crazy. Okay, so let's take it back to the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in East Orange, New Jersey.
Okay, you're a Jersey
Uh,
boy.
oh yes, through and through. It's still today what allows me to grind the way that I do is because of where I came from.
Sure. So when did you first pick up a basketball?
The earliest pictures are when I was 2, 3 years old. Used to have the Nerf hoop in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
But then, where we grew up, it also became a coat hanger on the back of the door with a balled up sock. And that became basketball. And I was highly competitive in the house playing
So
that.
you have one brother. Do you have sisters?
I have one brother, Brandon, that's a blood brother,
Okay.
but we never grew up. We always had cousins who
Yeah.
stayed, we had friends who stayed, and so it was never just a household of me, my mom, my dad, my brother. There was
Right.
always a somebody else that
Right.
was there. So we had a house full of all boys, and in our family, all boy cousins
Oh
and
my
one
God.
one girl cousin, and so it was a lot of testosterone and a lot of competition going on,
Bless
and she was in the middle of it too.
bless her heart and bless your mom's heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so you got in high school. Did I read it correctly that you won 3 high school state championships?
Yes. Yes. We were good. We had a good team and
Listen to you. You're like, "We're good."
no, we were. Our coach was Bob Farrell and he was fantastic at maximizing everyone's potential and
Right.
what you did well. And he fit that around some other players who kind of were extra skilled
Right.
on the floor. And so yeah, we had good runs. We were parochial A was our is all of the bigger. So in Jersey back north, your Catholic schools and parochial
Right.
schools are the ones that are your bigger are big
Sure.
basketballs. And
Sure.
so we will win that and we won that those years. And so yeah, it was fun. I had a fun high school
You're
career.
for those that are listening right now, he's got the biggest smile on his face. Um, so when you were in high school, and I've talked to a lot of players on here, former players, and they all kind of give different answers. But were you thinking about what you were going to do after high school?
No, well, I wanted to. I never thought for me going to college was going to be academic.
Right.
So it was because my parents were so stressed and so much stressed the academic side of things that it wasn't going to hinge on if I was going to be a basketball player or
Sure.
not.
Sure.
But it was going to be something that could help in terms of a scholarship. And
Right.
so that was the drive in high school. The first drive was just to try to be the best player to play on the main court in my park across the street from me where I grew up. That was the
Right.
first goal. And when I got that goal, that was bigger than making any of the teams that I made in high school and playing. Being able to play on that main court and stay on the court was huge. And so that same drive was the same drive that allowed me to have the success that I had at Seton Hall
Right.
that then put me in a position to be able to get a scholarship, but still not in anything where that was high accolades, like how Cedric Henderson, as
Yeah.
big as Ced was in high school,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
the opposite of that. I was the person whose teams won a whole bunch and was a
Right.
major part of it, but I was still only 5'6", 5'7", 140 pounds.
No, I remember the days that he was playing in the pyramid and during college. It was crazy. So let's talk about the recruitment then. Were you getting recruited by a lot of schools for basketball?
No, not at all.
No.
That was it. I was playing basketball just because I enjoyed and I love playing basketball. And
Right.
I like being good at it. I liked our teams to be good. But I wasn't highly recruited. And then so it was more like your mid to lower division 1.
Sure.
Like I thought I
Sure.
was gonna go to Manhattan College with Fran Fischella.
Right.
That's where I was headed at that time. And so but the biggest schools were Manhattan and SMU. And
Ah,
then Stanford, just by happenstance, they came to watch somebody else play whose game got canceled. They needed to watch basketball, so they came to where we play summer league, which was a competitive summer league. And
right.
he happened to see me play, Jeff Jackson was the assistant coach then. He saw me play, and then that was what allowed him to even start to recruit me. And then that was my junior year, and that was in
Right.
between sophomore and junior year.
That's crazy. And so, was it a foregone conclusion that you would go to Stanford with him recruiting you as opposed to
Yeah,
some what?
because that was a bigger school. Because
Yeah,
at that point, I mean, how do you turn down having a paid for Stanford
right.
education
Right.
when you're not somebody who is anticipating or thinking about the NBA in any way? Because
Right.
if that was the case, then I would have had bigger schools recruiting me that put me
Sure.
in a better position to be a pro. So no, Stanford just to me it afforded me the opportunity to still play my love, which was
Right.
basketball, but do it at the best academic institution that I could do it at, where I would make the best connections in order for
Mm,
me to now
right.
be able to live life after basketball.
Did you have a chip on your shoulder at all going into college because no one else really recruited you?
I did because people didn't no nobody knew who I was, but
Yeah.
you also just didn't know the fire that burned inside of me to want to be the best every time I stepped on the floor, and so I just needed to be exposed to it more,
Right.
and the more I got exposed to it, the more I wanted, and so yeah, I had that chip never left my shoulder from the day I was thought of as only being the third best point guard in East Orange, New Jersey my
Wow.
entire time going through grammar school because now basketball was big for us. Grammar school, middle school, high school.
Right.
It didn't just start in high school. It was
Right.
from when you were younger, and there were two kids who were thought to be better than me, all the way up through we got it through high school, and so I lived with a chip of wanting to prove people wrong for the longest time.
So let's talk about that move from New Jersey to California.
Mhm.
That had to be, I would think, some culture shock there.
A lot of culture shock because I went from, I was growing. My city was 99% African American,
Right.
but I went to from sixth to 12th grade. As I told you, going to Catholic school was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing for. So I still went to school in predominantly white schools
Right.
and very low. But then I always went home to
Sure.
East Orange. And so now, though, I was going to California uh, and to a part of California where the mindset of living was just totally different.
Yeah.
And it was on a entirely different time zone. And so that, when I tell people don't realize when you move from east to west,
Yeah.
and now the times it throws you off of like
It
Sunday
does.
football is way different living in the East
It
Coast than Sunday football living on the West Coast, where we take it straight to the nighttime. Like that's
That's right.
you go out at nighttime and you watch the game while you're out.
Right.
Well, in West Coast, it was the game was up. Now all of the games are over, and now it's
Right.
time to go to dinner. It's like, well, what are we gonna do for the rest of the night?
That's right.
So yeah, so no, it was. I got introduced to jaywalking. Like I never knew what that was until I got pulled
Yeah.
over by campus security because they said that I jaywalked, and I was like, well, I guess this is my first run into this is my first run in with racial profiling because you really just pulled me over for crossing the street. And it's like, no, it's a real thing. Nobody does it. Like they crossed at the crosswalk, and I'm
That's
like, shoot, where I'm from. That's the crosswalk. That's just something that they put on the ground because they said
exactly.
we don't use
Exactly.
those.
I grew up in a small town, like literally 5,000 people in Tennessee. I didn't even know what a crosswalk was,
Right,
literally.
exactly. You just I'm
Yeah.
not I'm I should ask security. I said, so you want me to walk all the way down there to
Yeah.
cross and then walk all the way back when I can just walk right here? I told him I look both ways. There were no cars coming.
Okay, that's a good one. Um, what was it like? So what was it like that first game when you went on the floor playing for Stanford?
Shucks. For me, it was just basketball again. Like
Yeah.
it was no different. I didn't feel like it was going to be any harder than it was to play in any of the parks that I played in growing up, playing
Mm,
in any of the AAU matchups that I played with against people that were from my area or those that were in New York, and so it was. It was just another chance to again prove to people what I could do on the floor, and so it was fun. It was
Yeah.
I took it also as a challenge because Stanford was 7-21 the year before I went there, and
Wow.
before I left to go, I told my parents, I told everybody, we're gonna be a winning program next season. And they're like, bro, they won 7 games. How y'all gonna go from 7 games
Right.
to a winning program? I told you, I promise you that that's what I have. That's what I'm good at doing. And so that first game was the start of it.
So did you start that first game?
Yeah, I went in there. I went into Stanford. First off, Mike Montgomery, who was the head coach, didn't know who I was from Adam. He literally told me on my visit, I got one scholarship for either you or the other player was Dan Earl, who went to Penn State from Southern. He's from Southern New
Right.
Jersey,
Right.
and so I got one scholarship for whichever one of y'all says yes. So I said yes, right there. I just took the scholarship right then to be able to go. And so he no idea what type player I was, what I did, nothing. He just knew this coach vouched and said he could change our program. And I said, okay, well, I don't know how. So they brought in a junior college transfer. This is when I was
Right.
coming. And they had another guy who was a senior who was there. So really I was supposed to be third on the depth chart. But by the time we got to the first game, the junior college kid had left because
Right.
it wasn't going to start. And then the senior was just trying to beat me up in practice every day because he had no chance of starting over me. So yeah, I started from day one.
That's really incredible. I look at today's college, well, high school and college kids, and, for everything about NIL and all that stuff, I don't necessarily, for the most part, see that hunger in a lot of these players just to play the game and to win. I see a lot of them that want it for themselves, but nobody else, or
Yeah, but
everybody else
yeah,
comes second.
and I think the thing with that is that is you got to think that's a learned culture though,
It
and,
is.
and so I don't put it as much on the individual as I put is if you see that player acting that way, you can probably more than likely look around and see who's their parent.
Yes, that's right.
And so until we find that balance of again being able to let these kids go out and play, enjoy playing, enjoy being as great as they are, but not in some way interjecting yourself
Hmm.
as being more than. You can cheer. I'll listen, cheer all day, do all of those things that you want to do, but when you start to be when it starts becoming bigger than them just playing, that's when I always feel like now you've now the balance has
Right.
shifted in
Sure.
terms of what this basketball thing is, and so until that changes, then it's going to be very hard to change. But also I think it's just a society as a whole, in that is the way that things go. It's like if you're this entertainer, or if you make or do this make this amount of money or do these certain things, then you're looked at in a different light than anyone else. And so it's like I said, it's as much a cultural change
Yeah, it
that would
is.
have to happen in it all as much as an individual change.
Sure. We've talked about that a lot about how like players, that played in the 90s just had more, I don't know, more desire to take it and win as versus now. But we're getting off that topic. I don't
Yeah,
want to dive
yeah.
into that
Don't
because
veer. Yeah, don't get me going too far.
okay, so quick question. So what was the hardest thing about playing basketball at Stanford? Or was there a hard thing? All right, before we get into the next topic, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about something that can really help you level up your personal brand. I've created an exclusive new book called The Visionary Personal Brand Playbook. It's perfect for those of you who have big goals but aren't exactly sure how to make your brand stand out, or for that matter, where to even start. It's packed with actionable tips that you can start using right now, today. If you're interested, head over to my website at sandy-adams.com/playbook and grab your copy. Now back to the show.
Um, The hardest part was not looking up and being able to see my family and friends.
Mm,
Like that was the toughest. I didn't play any games up until that point without there being some family member
wow.
or friend that was there watching. And that goes from summer league games to AAU to high school
Sure.
games to little league. Well, there was always somebody there. So that was my first time playing basketball and them not being there. Other than that, the people always say, "But you were smaller." And I was like, "Yeah, but I was always this size." Like, so they're like, "Yeah, but everybody else gets bigger and they're fast." I was like, "Yeah, okay. Well, I played against big and fast people, and so
Sure.
it was again. I just think my desire to want to be good, my desire to want to prove that I belonged
Mm.
being there, superseded any of the worries about playing the game.
Sure. And I think it's easier for other people to look at some people and put their own fears and insecurities on
Yes,
other people. You know, you
yes,
were confident in what you could do and you knew that, and everybody else, it's just noise. And they're just looking at their own insecurities and their own observations from themselves. Did you have was your career at Stanford pretty steady? Did you have injuries? Did you have anything that was hard to deal with?
career wise, no. The biggest adjustment was just school wise,
Yeah.
because the balance of the two with the travel was the first time that I ever had
Yeah.
to do that. But also, school had come very easily to me up until that point, and I think it was because once you got there, there was a level of maturing that they wanted to make you that one they wanted
Sure.
to have happen, which meant there wasn't going to be the hand holding of today we're doing this and we're reading this and we're doing
Right.
this and then you're going to be tested on these type things and where it's more to that
Yes. Yes.
where we got to Stanford and it was literally like there's no attendance,
No.
you don't never have to come to class.
It's not.
There you can take the test anywhere on campus during the whatever just during the time period. You can come get it and
Oh,
go
that's
take it in the
crazy.
library. But the thing is, you'll never be able to finish a test not knowing what not understanding the topic. You're not going to be able to go into a book because everybody's like, "Oh, sure, I'm just going. This is an open book. You can just look for your notes." I said, if you're trying to look through your notes or through a book to try to find the answer, you won't finish
Yeah,
in the
that's true.
time that's allotted to do the test. And so there was so much just personal. And then for me, I'm like, oh, I'm from Jersey. I'm about to hustle. I'm about to game these people. They they don't know what they got coming for them. And so I'm like, oh, bang, I'm about to. And after that first semester, I was on academic probation. I had never gotten less than a
Yeah.
B or B plus in my entire life.
I did the same
And,
thing my first
and
semester at
first,
Memphis.
bow right away. I was like, holy
Oh.
cow, hold up. And so it forced me to grow up
Sure.
uh, a lot quicker because you started to see you get the feedback is immediate in terms
Mhm.
of what your growth is
Right.
like. And so I would say my it was off the court that was more adversity than anything that happened on the floor.
Sure. And that makes perfect sense. What did you major in?
Sociology. I went thinking I was going to be an accountant, and then we went through an entire course, and a part of the course was also simulation of what it would be like to be an accountant. And I
Yes.
was like, oh heck
Yeah.
no, this sitting in this box room and
Yeah.
just people feeding me information and I'm plugging, and I was like, no, I need something that's more social. I want to interact with people. So
Sure.
sociology books. I thought I would just be a part of Boys and Girls Clubs. My dad
Oh,
was an executive director in Newark,
right.
and so I really enjoyed that. And I thought that's what I was going to get into.
So, when during the time at Stanford did you realize you could go pro, or there was a good chance of that?
My freshman year, I tell everybody, I played against Jason Kidd was at Cal,
Yeah, I remember that.
and we played against each other. And the second time that we played, we got done. He was like, "Bro, you know that you could be a pro." And I was like, a pro what? Like he was like,
Pro what?
he's like, you could play in the NBA. And I was like, man, get out of here. He was like, no, I'm serious, yo. You just continue on this trajectory, keep getting better. And that was after that was the first time that I really ever started to work out in basketball. Like go to change my shot. Like 'cause I used to shoot a
Oh,
certain
yeah.
way that wasn't going to allow me to be efficient. So I changed my shot, and my assistant coach Keith Larson was great with. And I didn't come back home. I came home after my freshman year for a couple of
Right.
weeks, a month or
Right.
so, and then after that, I never came home in the summer because it literally went from graduating, making it to the NBA. And because of that though, I did miss out on, like, I don't really know anybody in my graduating class
Yeah.
that was not someone that was in my initial dorm my freshman year, or somebody who was an athlete, played basketball, and so I don't know any
Right.
normal students because I literally just went to graduate school, become a pro.
Right. So so you went 16th in the draft, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, what was those few months leading up to the draft like for you mentally?
It was a little bit of mental warfare because you know what you have been ranked in
Mm,
college all of these years, and
yeah.
taking people back in '97, it was a lot of your players, and what you looked forward to was going to be guys coming out of college to play in the league. Like that's
Right.
what you look. I mean, now because the game is so global, it can be from international places. It
Yeah.
can like there's a different pool, but for us. And so I knew where I ranked amongst point guards in the college ranks.
Sure.
That if people would have me either one or two would be between myself and Jock Vaughn at that time.
Hmm.
But we also knew that that doesn't always translate for guys who lack size as to what happens in the draft. And so, you go and work out for a number of teams, and that's what I did during that time. Was number one working out, just physically getting ready, but then also going and working out for individual teams, and it was mentally tough because you knew what you could do, but I also knew there was a level that was just outside
Yeah.
of my control. And so,
Yeah.
but I just went and worked hard in the interviews, tried to play well, but also interview well, in terms of sitting down,
Mhm.
talking with general managers and
Right.
and other executives, and then from there you kind of let the chips fall where they may.
Right. Did you have an idea that Cleveland was going to take you?
Uh, we thought that once it started to get later into the draft, then
Mm,
we knew that Cleveland was a place that was really interested, and they were wanting to make a change. They needed to get another young point guard
right.
because they were making a trade,
Right.
and that's what allowed it to all happen. So we knew, but we didn't know if they had two picks. They had 13 and they had 16. We
Hmm.
didn't know which one, but Derek Anderson, who was
Yes.
thought to be able to either go a little bit higher than that, was then available at 13. So there was
Right.
no way that they could pass on his talent and what he did.
Sure.
So they took him at 13, and then from there, Clippers were 14th and
Right.
had talked about it, but I told my agent, like, let's discourage going to the Clippers because I didn't enjoy. That was my one workout of the teams I worked out that I was like, I hope that they don't draft me.
Wow. Yeah.
And so we knew 16 would be the next one. And so that to hear your name called, to tell them it's your time, is for me, it's for real a dream come true because the NBA was never a goal. I always tell
Sure.
people the NBA was just a dream. Like some of these guys who played a certain, it was a goal. Like, this is what
Right.
I'm doing. I'm going to
Exactly.
college and I'm gonna be a pro. For me, it's like I'm going to college. I'm gonna get a job and be able to talk about this college career I had. But I'm be having to just working me a 9 to 5. So, but a dream happened. To shake David Stern's hand was amazing.
I've had some of the guys on here that have talked about they had that tunnel vision. That's all they thought about to the point where it almost destroyed their careers because and then they retire and they don't know what they're going to do next. And that's been, kind of the theme throughout. And that was one of the reasons I started the podcast was to talk about that. But so getting up there and shaking David Stern's hand, do you remember that whole night?
Oh yeah, I remember it. I remember something because we were in the green room. It was my then girlfriend uh and now wife, and
That's good.
so yeah, so we oh yeah, no, that was my other focus at Stanford. It was play basketball, was go to school, play basketball, and then Dina. Those were your
Hey, that's
those.
okay. I like you even more now.
And so so for us to be there, my parents, my agent, and sitting and waiting, and
Right.
then now you get, because that was also when they invited the people who they thought were going to be lottery picks.
Sure.
You get invited to, it was in New York, so we were sitting there. So now we get outside of the lottery, and it's like, man, how long are we gonna sit here?
Yeah.
And so that was that was, I remember sitting there waiting, and then finally, once it all worked out that we were going to go then, I remember shaking his hand. I remember taking the pictures. I had on my suit that I was supposed to wear at that time. It was from Hugo Boss, but they sent it, and I was a real Jersey kid, so everything was baggy. There was no fitted anything. Like, and so they sent me this suit, and I was like, heck no, there's no way. And so we would have to go to Macy's and just had it. So I see the pictures. I was like, man, all right. I always thought that the suit was big, but now looking at these pictures, holy cow, that suit was huge on me. And then we went to dinner we had family there and the agents and my some other people on our team. And then we went back to the hotel, and we
Yeah.
we literally just we watched movies,
Mm,
sat around with all my cousins, and I call them at that time, it's like my brothers and
yeah.
sisters, and that was it. We were uh it was very low key in that way, but and I think it was just because that also was just, it was like an exhilaration. Like,
Sure.
so long we've been waiting to see what was gonna happen, and it happened, and it was like, man, we could just for real go home and
Yeah.
rest.
It's like the adrenaline. It's like coming down off an adrenaline rush where
Right.
you just want to relax. I do have a quick question about your wife.
Yep.
So, did she ever have any misgivings about dating an athlete?
No, she hadn't have the opportunity to have enough bad experiences. So
That's fun.
and didn't even realize that I played basketball. I mean, shucks, the people in my dorm, when they heard that I played basketball when I first went to Stanford, thought I was like on the intramural team. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't even as like, oh, for real, like on the Stanford men's basketball, for the school that plays in the Pac-10.
Yeah.
Like you're
Oh.
on that team.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so yeah, I tell people it's like a movie. My freshman year, at the beginning of the year, they would come to the games. They would be in the stands doing homework, books out, and while the
Oh,
games, that's how few people would be at the games. Like, they literally would be there doing homework.
right.
So by the time you go to the end, where now you have people who are sleeping out for the days before games, just to try to get tickets to get in to watch our games. So I had an opportunity to see Stanford basketball go from one end of the spectrum to an
I think that's
entirely
I
other end.
I think that's awesome. Okay, so let's because I know you've got time constraints. So let's talk about that first week in training camp in Cleveland.
Oh,
Like, let's talk
murder,
about
murder. And you, so you want to talk about Seth Henderson? You just asked Sid how it was. I mean, we met each other. The crazy thing for Sid and I, we met each other when we worked out. We didn't know each other, and
Did you even know who each other were?
just through college
Right,
basketball in
right,
general, you knew like the name, but
right.
I didn't pay too much attention to it. Um, but then we literally hit it off from the first day. Like the first time they brought
Really?
everybody together, and it was crazy because you got a for real country boy and a for real city kid, and the two of us, and you got this athletic wing, and you got this little fast point guard. so, so, uh, yeah, it was so that was great, and then so those first practices were the hardest practices of my entire life. Like
Yeah.
there was nothing. Number one, it was just because that's how Coach Fratello was,
Hmm.
and his philosophy of I'm going to try to mentally and physically break you because I know that when we get into a tough moment, a tough game,
Sure.
that my teams will be mentally and physically ready to deal with whatever comes our
Right.
way. And it was hell. Like there's no other way to put it. It was just it was the worst. My body had never been in that much pain. Like I had never had muscles hurt in that way.
Right.
Uh, but I understood, after playing. I understood why.
Yeah. He kind of had that Navy SEAL mentality a little bit in their training.
And he had, because I'm one, he had small man complex, is what he had. He's out there.
Oh,
As
yeah.
you got to still command, as smaller guys, you got to figure out.
Right.
I still have to command respect. I have to command attention. And
Yeah.
so, how do I do it? And how it is, and people do it in different ways. For him, it was in your face, loud. This is,
Right.
but I tell everybody at the end of the day, with Fratello, you would have whatever back and forth y'all have, because as much as he yelled, he will let you yell back at him. But at the end of the
Really?
day, oh yeah, end of the day, he would still give you a kiss on both cheeks and say, "See you tomorrow." He was an Italian through and through. Yeah, that's the one thing he is.
Okay. That first year you guys played, you ended up getting into the playoffs. You lost to
Yep,
Indiana.
yep.
What was that playoff experience like other than the losing? But what was the playoff experience?
Oh man, it showed us when people talk about the difference in regular season basketball
Mhm.
and in playoff basketball, because when we got the matchup, I think they were the three, we were the six. And
Mhm.
we had the matchup. We were like, cool, this is who we, because they were an older veteran team. We
Right.
were young upstarts, and we felt like we could, speed wise,
Yeah.
we had a chance. And then we found out, I mean, we won the game, and then found out really quickly that this is an entirely different world
Yeah.
when playing in these tournaments and playing playoff basketball. And so it was a learning experience of how physical it is, how important every possession is,
Right.
um, and just how good and why teams of their success level, why
Mm.
and how they get there with their execution. So it was, but it was, I thought it was great for us to be there and compete every game the way that we did.
Yes, indeed. So you spent 12 years in the league. You
Yep.
spent how many years at Cleveland? I think.
I was there 3.5 years in
Okay.
Cleveland.
Okay. Um, when did it start, or did it start becoming an issue? Like when was it when you decided you needed to step off the court, that you needed to retire? How did that come
When
about?
man, my 12th year, I was in Utah, and those last two seasons, I was uh, traveling away from my family,
Sure.
and was already in, even years before that started to, we were having to do back and forth. And
Yeah.
so I got to the summer after my 12th year, the year was over, uh, and I was mentally drained.
Yeah.
Physically, I felt good. Like to this day, I have no physical ailments, um, and I could go out and still play when I was done playing.
Right.
But I was mentally done with basketball, and in terms of it being something that I physically did anymore.
Right.
Um, and it was just, the travel takes a toll. At that point, I knew that I was going to be a player that would be on a team for a year here,
Right.
then there would be a year here, a year. And I didn't, at that point, I didn't love basketball enough to keep doing that.
Hmm.
And the other thing I said, I'd already been doing the back and forth for my family as it was. And so I wanted to enjoy them
Sure.
a little bit more, and I also knew I was ready for my next career, which was doing the broadcasting.
So how long had you been thinking about doing broadcasting before you
Uh,
actually called it quits?
for about 3 4 years,
And
and
what kind of propelled you to start thinking about that? Because your degree you said was in sociology.
yes, but it was I did the NBA Players Association. They do uh, summer programs in
Mm,
terms of, and they have different themes to them. Whether
right.
you want to do, and the broadcast this year, that summer, I think that was the summer between my seventh and eighth year, or eighth and ninth year, somewhere around those latter parts. They started this broadcast program, and so I went and did that broadcast program, and then I did a couple of the other ones in the summer,
Mm,
just to try to figure out if I want to do more, do continuing education, more
right.
school, if I want to go down in the world of business more, if I wanted to do broad. So I just was trying to figure out now, because my entire life had been basketball. I never,
Yeah.
like, everything that I did was, it revolved around, well, basketball is this, and then everything else
Yeah.
falls after that. But now it's like, well, what other things are you? What else? What are you even interested in? And I did the broadcasting, and it was like the light just, it clicked right away. And so I had known for some years that that's what I wanted
Right.
to get into, and so it made the stepping away from playing a lot easier, because I knew what I wanted to do. I think the
Sure.
thing that hurts a lot of people is
It
you
is.
don't know, and then it's just the shock of, oh shucks, I'm not going to practice
That's right.
today.
That's right. That's right. A lot of people have talked about that and and kind of losing their identity. They've been a basketball player for so long that
Right,
all of a sudden they're nothing. Like in their head, they don't know who they are anymore or what they can do. And
right.
it's really a big wake up call, especially I think if it wasn't necessarily their choice
Yes,
to end their career.
yes.
And I would think since your life had revolved around basketball so much anyway, that changing into being a broadcaster, it's still revolving around basketball.
Yeah, and it also, the other thing that Dina said to me was, hopefully the next job you get is also a traveling job. And so so that made it very easy to not only step into that job, but also it stayed with the same rhythm. And so
Sure,
the rhythm of, we're we're on, and we are a crazy family for 6 months out of the year, but
sure.
then there's also the 6 months where we just have the downtime.
Right,
Or now we like it to be 7 months of
right.
crazy time. We wouldn't mind getting to 8 months of crazy time,
Right,
and
right.
just 4 or 5 months. That, because that means that the team is doing that well. But yeah, no, it fit the schedule that I and rhythm that I was already
Sure.
accustomed to, and it allowed me to indulge in my new love, which is golf.
I've heard you really like golf.
I it really like is a soft way of putting it. I am an addicted lover.
I believe that the sentence was if he is not doing one thing, he's on the course.
Pretty much, I mean, at this point, people if they call and I answer the phone, they're like, "So, what hole are you on?" And then I have to tell them that if I am on a hole, or if I'm going, or I'm already done.
Right, right. So was it by chance that because you had played in Memphis, you'd played for the Grizzlies for what,
Yep,
two
2 years.
years?
Yep.
Okay. So was it a coincidence that you got the job doing the broadcasting for the Grizzlies?
Not so much, because Michael Heisley, God rest his soul, was the owner of the Grizzlies at that time.
Hmm.
He and I forged a relationship. It was just in the summers we would travel to Kiowa Island a lot, and so he did also. They had a home
Right,
there, and so we
right.
would see we would we would stay in touch, and so it became a relationship between his family and mine. And when I retired, he knew that I was doing TV, and so until we had to step away because of doing the blind
Sure.
side, doing the movie, and then having to do talks and stuff. And so he
Oh,
said he would like a former player and would like even more if it was a former Grizzly that would step in and start to do
Oh,
the games. And
yeah.
so the year after I was done, I did the radio for the Charlotte Bobcats. We were living in Charlotte,
Right.
and just to get my feet wet. And then I started doing college games for Pac-12 Network.
Mm.
And so then they knew that. I went and did an interview, and I mean, here we are today.
The rest is history.
15 years later.
15 years. And have you done it? I believe you've done it the entire time with Pete.
The entire time with Pete. Me, Pete Fish, and I have done it every day from day one that
That's
I stepped in.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yep.
Especially
That's our
in,
family.
yeah, especially in these days and times. That's crazy. So how do you, is Memphis home to you now?
Yes. I tell people I've gotten enough of a stamp of approval that people say that I can call myself an honorary Memphian.
I think so.
Because this is now in total, this is 19 years of us living in Memphis
Wow.
because from the time that we played here, with now the time of doing the TV, well, 20
Right.
years. That's
Right.
20 years. So, yeah, I think of this is home. We love it.
Yeah.
We made a lot of great friends here, and so uh, we enjoy it.
Okay, so you have a podcast,
Yes.
the night court, or is it night
Yep.
court, just period
Night
night?
court.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is it kind of like? How did that come about? Was it your passion? You just wanted to keep doing some stuff? Like what? How did that come about? Just
So
wanted to BS with everybody?
there you go. I mean, some people who get up here, they'll have this long story of, I always thought I wanted to get my words out there and let people. No, it was during the pandemic, and where it was really we weren't doing much of anything, as you know, and
Right.
so
Right.
Fish and I were like, well, shucks, brother, we really don't. We're always together. Like, why don't we just do a podcast? And so we our the extent of our podcast was Fish would have his iPad, will set his iPad up high enough for our voices, and he found some whatever tool it was to be able to tape and then send it out. And it was just it was
Yeah.
literally a two-man, but really was a one and a half man because Fish was doing so much stuff. I was just trying to show up close to on time for us to be able to do the taping. And we had no schedule. Like we didn't. There wasn't like every week we're gonna do it at this time. It would literally just be like, "Hey man, what you doing tonight?" I'm like, "Ain't nothing." He's like, "All right, you want to take one?" Well, sure, let's do it. So where it's got to a point now where uh, being with Bluff City Media has been good for us in terms
Right.
of now they've added a video component to it, and we try to stay every week on Tuesday to Wednesday, and of course
Yeah.
the schedule would dictate some of that
Sure.
during the year. But yeah, no, now it's just we talk a lot of Grizzlies basketball. We talk around the league
Right.
basketball,
Right.
and then if there's any other topics that are going on, but yeah, it's just the two of me and Fish just sitting around having a good time talking Grizzlies and NBA sports, and then
Um,
whatever else may come to mind.
I'll put all that in the show notes and on the screen if you're watching. Where can people find you online? What's the best social media platform to
Uh,
follow you?
for me, it's on Twitter. It's at Brevin Knight 22.
Okay. Okay.
That's where if there is much, that's where you will find it. I am a I'm still kind of an old school guy in that I'm on social media as much as I need to be,
Right.
but I still like to engage in life as much as I can. And so
I hear you.
I do as much as I can on it. But yeah, when I do, that's where
Okay.
I am.
Okay. Okay. Some quick questions.
Gotcha.
Favorite city to play in?
Oh man. I would have to say I had the most fun playing in Charlotte.
Interesting.
Just because I felt those years where I was just able to be the Brevin
Ah,
Knight that I always was
okay.
in those seasons.
Okay. Best trash talker you've ever faced?
I would say it was Gary Payton.
Oh.
and I couldn't tell you half of what he said to me at those times. This is when you listen to Night Court, I can give you more of a in-depth analysis of what was said. But here on your show, I'm just going to say that he was the best at it, and half of it I would not repeat to you.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and I always like to ask this: if you could go back and talk to a 9-year-old Brevin, your 9-year-old self, what would you tell them? Tell him.
I would tell him to not change one way of your attitude because it's going to allow you to be successful in life. But I will always also tell you, don't allow those two things that become main to consume you, to turn
Mm,
you off from being able to experience a lot of different people.
mm,
And I think I was a little bit closed minded because of where I came from, but I would tell myself to be able to at that point to be a little more open minded during
sure.
your college years.
Sure. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay. I just thank you so much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Okay. There you have it. That wraps up today's show. I've loved it that you've stayed all the way to the end of the show. I appreciate all your support. Another reminder to subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch. My mantra is like, share, and review. Follow us on social media at 5THQRT Podcast. Until next time, remember, change is our ally and it paves the way for greatness. Stay inspired. Have a great rest of the week. Hey everyone, a quick scheduling update. The Fifth Quarter Podcast is moving from a weekly show to an every other week schedule. Thank you so much for your support. I'm excited to keep sharing these amazing journeys with you.